Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting for the City of Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals for March 23rd, 2016. First item on our agenda is a consideration of minutes from our regular meeting back on February 24th, 2016. Are there any changes to those minutes? All right.
I do want to point out on one of the items we had failed to indicate that a public hearing was indeed held, so that has been inserted into the minutes. That's a little bit different from what was posted online.
Okay, very good. Well, with that change, then we'll go ahead and approve the minutes as presented, and we'll consider new business. First, to consider variance requests. Our first one there is application Z16015. By Kirk Mason, representing Stones River Manor. He's making the following requests, and this is for property in a commercial highway, single-family residential, and medical residential district located at 205 Haynes Drive. First of all, he's requesting a variance from the zoning ordinance requiring a type D buffer between adjacent properties zoned commercial highway and residential single-family RS15. He's also requesting a variance from the ordinance which requires a type A buffer between adjacent properties zoned commercial highway and medical district residential. All right, Mr. Anthony, if you'd review that application for us, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. The applicant, Kirk Mason, representing Stones River Manor, wishes to expand the existing Stones River Manor senior living facility on the property located at 205 Haynes Drive. As you can see on the cover sheet of your packet, as well as on the screens in front of you, the property is divided into three zoning districts. It has RS15 on the north, CMR on the west, and CH on the south and east. The northern portion of the property is occupied by an assisted living center, while the southeastern portion of the property is occupied by an independent living center. As a Class 3 home for the aged, the existing structures in use are legal and non-conforming on the subject property, and the expansion will be an expansion of that legal non-conforming use. The applicant wishes to add both a memory care unit and a new nursing home wing. Based on the measurements that were taken from the submitted drawings, the total area of the expansion would be around 25,000 square feet. The proposed memory care unit would lie in the RS15 district south of the existing assisted living center. The proposed nursing home wing would lie in the CH district south of the proposed memory care unit. The rear access from Castlewood Drive would be reconfigured to allow the construction of a new parking lot to serve the expanded facilities. Along with access on Castlewood Drive, the site would continue to have access onto Haynes Drive and Windlewood Drive, which is on the west. Table 2 of the Murfreesboro zoning ordinance requires landscape buffers between incompatible zoning districts. Because the zoning district lines lie internal to the site, the applicant wishes to obtain variances from those buffering requirements. If the variances are not granted, the applicant would be required to install a 15-foot type D buffer between the proposed memory care wing and the proposed nursing home wing. Further, the applicant would be required to install a 10-foot type A buffer between the expansion area and the portion of the subject property zone CMR on the west. The applicant contends that the zoning lines already exist and are internal to the site, posing a practical difficulty. Further, such split zoning is not typical. This creates an unusual characteristic when compared to other lots. Staff can answer any questions that you have. The applicant's representative is here and can elaborate more on this project as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anthony.
Yes,
I think you got some site photographs you want to go through.
The aerial photographs here may be most helpful. If we look at the site, again, it's bounded by Haynes Drive, Windlewood Drive, Castlewood Drive, and the proposed expansion area is on the southwestern side. As you can see, there's currently a parking lot south of the existing assisted living center. This entire area is where the new expansion would be. The roadway coming in from Castlewood Drive, which is on the south, roadway going north, would have to be reconfigured to go around the proposed structures. The applicant did submit a site layout, which is also very helpful. And on the site layout, you can see the two new wings that are proposed, the memory care addition being the northern wing and the nursing home being the southern wing. Again, here you can see from Castlewood Drive the new driveway with a new parking area. And the zoning lines are also present, so you can see sort of the conundrum that the applicant has as far as putting in required buffering between these various zoning districts that do lie internal to the site.
Okay, and yeah, I guess that's the odd thing about this particular application. I don't recall ever seeing this before, but that you've got three different zonings on one platted piece of property, right?
That is correct, and the zoning map here shows, so the outline green is the lot itself, and then as you can see, there's this RS-15 piece, which did formerly abut other RS-15 property to the north on Haynes, but that property was rezoned CH. Then you have CH property along the south and the east side of this property. And then you have this CMR strip over on the west, which is serving, perhaps you would consider that a buffer in itself between the CH property and then residential property along Long Meadow Drive.
So if it was all one zoning district, then they wouldn't have to make this application. Is that fair?
That's correct. And we have recommended, the applicant has determined that they don't want to do that at this time, but we have recommended that as a future step to avoid potential conflicts in the future with these zoning lines.
Yeah.
Was it one piece of property that from the beginning, or at the time that they purchased it, was it zoned with three, or were there multiple pieces of property that?
That is a very good question. I would probably have to defer to the applicant on that because I'm not familiar with the history. I know that this was an annexed piece of property, and I'm assuming that the way that the annexation came in probably played some role in how the zoning was done.
Understand.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Anthony? All right. Mr. Mason, anything you'd like to add to the application?
If you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them. I can answer the questions that were just posed.
All right. If you'd come to the podium, please, sir.
When Stones River Manor was first constructed in I'm sorry, Kirk Mason, representing Stones River Manor. When the facility was first built in 1977, the property that we have now didn't belong to us, it belonged to Sam Haynes. And the front yard at Stones River Manor is where the Rite Aid Pharmacy now sits. And so about 15 years ago, we arranged a land swap with Sam Haynes to acquire all of that property in exchange for our front yard. And so that's how we've gotten the room to expand our facilities. So the expansions we've done up until now have been in independent living. We were granted a certificate of need in September by the HSDA to add this 30-bed skilled nursing center. And so as a result of that, we're here to apply for this zoning variance because to separate those two facilities between the memory care and the skilled nursing center would present some difficulties. It'd be pretty unattractive to put it mildly. Other than that, our expansion plans for the future will also be more independent living on the northwest corner of the property, and then the southwest corner of the property that would remain is still undetermined what sort of expansions we would want there. And so that's the reason that we haven't asked for any zoning changes at this time other than this.
So say that again, the reason why you're not asking for what I would call a bulk zoning change is because you're not sure what you're going to do on these other sections of your property?
Well, we definitely have plans for independent living on the northwest corner, so we wouldn't want that rezoned because it's already appropriate.
Right.
And then on the southwest corner, we had some long-range plans for perhaps a hospice center,
yes,
which
sir.
Murfreesboro is now getting one. And so we'll probably be moving to some other type of geriatric services other than that. And because they're undetermined, it may be something of a commercial nature that would not require that we change that zoning. So, sound right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I understand it better now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mason.
Thank you.
This time we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against the application, if you would, please come forward. All right, seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion. We do have two different parts of this application, so I guess we need to consider the variance for commercial highway and residential single family first.
There's no discussion. I'll make a motion that we approve the variance associated with the type D buffer between commercial highway and single-family residential.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now consider a motion concerning the commercial highway and medical district residential part.
If there's
No further questions. I'll make a motion to approve the second part of this application.
a second.
All right. Did you second that? Did you? Okay. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Mason, that application has been approved. Thank you. All right. Next is application Z16018 by Mr. Tim Dietz, representing Sonic Restaurants. He's making a request for property in a commercial highway district located at 215 Cason Lane. Three parts to that application here. A variance from the zoning ordinance prohibiting drive-through lanes from being located in a required front yard. Second, a variance from the ordinance requiring a carry-out restaurant to have a minimum of 10 queuing spaces. And finally, a variance from the ordinance requiring drive aisles adjacent to 60-degree parking spaces to have a minimum width of 18 feet. All right. Mr. Anthony, if you review that application for us, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Sonic Restaurants wishes to construct a drive-through window on the north side of the existing Sonic restaurant located at 215 Cason Lane. This property is situated at the southeast corner of the intersection of Cason Lane and Cason Square Boulevard. It is in the CH zoning district. Minimum setbacks for the CH zone are 42 feet on the front, 20 on the rear, and 10 on the sides. Because the subject property has frontage on both Cason Lane and Cason Square Boulevard, the 42-foot front yard setback would be required along both frontages. The zoning ordinance prohibits drive-through lanes from being placed in a required front yard. The queuing lane for the proposed drive-through window would encroach into the required 42-foot front yard along Cason Square Boulevard by approximately 8 feet, and the applicant is seeking a variance for that encroachment. I'm going to pull up the site plan so we can go through each of these. I have the site plan on the screen. The applicant has shown with this lower dashed line the required 42-foot front yard setback, again with Cason Square Boulevard being there to the north. They're then showing a second dashed line, and as you can see, the cars in the queuing line go over that 42-foot line and project out into that setback. So that is the first request that the applicant has, is for a variance from that requirement that drive-through lanes cannot be located within the front yard setback. Upon staff's review of the site layout exhibit, staff determined that 2 additional variances would be necessary for the project to move forward. As shown on the exhibit, 2 of the proposed queuing spaces are located east or beyond the drive-through window. The applicant has indicated that these 2 queuing spaces would be drive-ahead or waiting spaces, meaning that after a customer pays at the drive-through window, the customer would move forward and then await delivery from restaurant staff. The zoning ordinance requires 10 queuing spaces for carry-out restaurants, and traditionally, queuing spaces have been delineated beginning at the drive-through window itself, not any area beyond the drive-through window. So the 2 spaces located east of the window would not count toward the 10 queuing space requirement. And in order to provide queuing as shown on the exhibit, the applicant would need to obtain a variance from the board. So again, I do want to point out that on the site plan, the applicant is showing 10 vehicles in a queuing line, but 2 of those are beyond the actual pickup window. So those are the two that planning staff has determined would not count toward the minimum 10 requirement. Staff has also identified the need for a variance from Chart 3 of the zoning ordinance, which requires a drive aisle located adjacent to 60-degree parking spaces to have a minimum width of 18 feet. As shown on the applicant's exhibit, the drive aisle would narrow down to about 13 feet on the southeast side of the building where the new queuing area is proposed. In order to construct the drive aisle as shown on the exhibit, a 5-foot variance from Chart 3 would be necessary. So again, on the screen, I do show the final car in the queuing line. This is where the drive aisle is narrowing down to 13 feet at this point. The applicant contends that the lot already being built out and having limited options for queuing spaces constitute practical difficulties. Additionally, the applicant suggests that the lot having 2 required front yards and a broad curvature along the Cason Lane Boulevard frontage would constitute unusual characteristics. Because the need for 2 of the variances, the number of queuing spaces and the drive aisle width, were noticed by staff during review of the applicant's exhibit, the applicant has not provided justification for these variances, but should probably do so during this hearing. Planning staff does have 2 concerns with the applicant's request and the additional issues that were discovered during our review of the exhibit. First, as shown on the applicant's exhibit, the queuing line extends behind an accessible parking space or ordering station. Planning staff is concerned that a vehicle requiring the only accessible space of this sort may not be able to enter or exit efficiently, particularly if a line forms at the drive-through pickup window or the drive-through ordering station. Secondly, with a reduced drive aisle width, it's unclear whether a vehicle would be able to safely and efficiently exit the spaces on the south side of the access aisle, particularly if vehicles are stacked in the queuing lane. The board should consider these concerns before granting or denying the requested variances. I would point out again that because there are 3 different variances here, you would need to take 3 separate votes on these. Staff can answer any questions that you have, and the applicant's representative is here as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anthony.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the fact that the space is already built out. Is this building already built?
This is an existing Sonic restaurant, yes. Currently, on that north side of the building where they would be putting in a pickup window, there are drive-up stations, ordering stations on that side, and those would be eliminated and replaced with this new drive-through window. Okay, I'm sorry. So currently as built then, I got you. It's built with drive-ups. Correct. And if you look at the, I've pulled up an aerial photograph, which on the aerial photograph you can see that the drive-ups are present there on that north side. You can see a couple of cars projecting outward at that point. Okay.
How do you determine where the queuing line begins?
That's really just a matter of how in the past staff has looked at that. And in talking with different staff members in the department, it's pretty much always been from the pickup window itself and not beyond it.
Yeah, I guess where it starts, I guess is what I'm questioning. I go through a Starbucks that has the same sort of, that you're blocking the lines in there, and there's plenty times 10 cars there. And for the first time I'd seen it or thought of it, wasn't sure.
I think you could look at it a number of different ways. Sometimes cars stack up at the actual ordering station, which would be back behind the building. You could have a long line of cars, but that's just for planning purposes. I think we have to pick a spot and stick with it, and okay. I think traditionally we've looked at that window. I remember this property coming to us before it was built. I don't remember do you remember everybody on the board, what the issue was?
There was another fast food restaurant on Cason Lane that had something with drive-through, but I don't remember this one in particular.
I wonder if it was the fact that it had the drive-through just because it was in a gateway or gateway design overlay.
Possibly. It seems like I was told that maybe
landscaping issues.
When Culver's was built, that there were some issues with the drive-through queuing there, but I'm not completely familiar with what those were.
Well, and there was another Sonic built in the medical, in the gateway area not too long ago.
On
and
Manson-
I
Manson
think
Pike.
it came before, but I don't recall.
That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
this area.
That's right. This was on Cason Lane. Yeah, okay. Looks like we got somebody wanting to say something.
Well,
Tell us who you-
Jimmy Mann, JTMJ Architecture, and so I'm the design professional for the project. And so with the project, I mean, the interesting thing was the setback variance. Cars are already sitting where we're wanting to put the drive-through lane in. So we don't really view that as a real problem. I mean, cars are there now, so we were hoping that would be an okay item. For with regard to the queuing and both the blocking of the accessible space, we're very active. Like we have a door that's planned on the side of the drive-through that car hops come out to, and so we're very active about getting people through that lane. And so they have a detector at the back that tells them how far back the cars are. And a lot of the drive-through orders are actually drinks, and so they try and make sure that that's a managed problem to keep you from having that backup, because if it backs up, it does interfere with the stalls, and so they work to try and solve that problem.
So are you saying that they would deliver the drink to the car prior to them getting to the pickup window?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so are you also saying then that car would be pulling out of the queuing lane versus going through the queuing? They would be
Yes,
pulling out of the queuing lane and going instead of going through the queuing lane itself, they just pull out of the queuing lane and leave.
If somebody comes around and they're in the queuing lane, if say they just had a drink order and they're a car or two back from the window, if the queuing lane starts to get backed up, the car hop would come out, would say, "Hi, I have your order," and they would get their payment, and that person could then pull out and go on, and that way the queuing lane doesn't get backed up. And then in addition to this, because we had less space, we were creating the space in front, because car hops always deliver out to the patio or to the other cars on the front, and so we have access either way to do that.
So would you have room for the bar hop, whatever, the
Car hop.
Car hop, thank you, to be able to deliver this food on the driver's side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I take it there's a sidewalk?
There's a sidewalk that we're extending.
Okay.
With doing. There's a sidewalk right now that the car hops walk down.
Right.
That
Okay.
side for the cars that are on that side.
All right. Any other questions?
I got one more.
Sure.
So you're eliminating, it looks like 9 spaces
Yes, sir.
from the stall area, okay? I mean, I get why you want to why Mr. Dietz wants to put the drive-through in here, but are you going to be, according to this site plan, you're not replacing those stall areas?
No, sir, we're not.
Okay. My only reluctance here is since you're not, or you don't have the ability to. Of course, I haven't been to this site, but that's going to be even more important for these cars to be able to flow through these queuing lines, because you're going to have more people probably taking up the stall area on the south side of the site, if you follow what I'm trying to say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's the reason it's, this is typically, we run into this a lot where we do this sort of addition to put a drive-through on that side, and that's the reason it's been sort of a managed thing. It's like they're very aggressive about making sure that we don't build that queue out, because we've got to make sure that people that are in stalls can get in and out efficiently. And, I think compared to other fast food service places, we have car hops that are in the lot. I mean, we want them to be safe as well. So we manage that project. You've got more staff that's available to make sure if somebody was backing up that they can do that you hold somebody and let them out.
So you don't see any problems with the stalls that are on the very south side and them trying to back up, and maybe especially the one that's on, I would call the south east corner, backing up, since they only have, 13 feet between them backing up and into this queue line, that's going to be a problem?
I think this will be a managed issue. I don't see a problem at all. This is not unusual for what Sonic has done in other locations, and I've done drive-through additions in a number of different locations.
And the car hops direct traffic at those Sonics?
If it came to that, yes, they would. I mean, if somebody was backing up, first they're gonna say, hey, we need to expedite stuff through the drive-through to get cars out. But if someone had to back up, a car hop
How do they know that someone's backing up?
Well, the car hops deliver food to the area, so I mean they'd see what's happening. They're all connected by speaker. They can, talk on that. So it should not be a problem.
Yeah, I've seen other Sonics with drive-throughs before. I think they're pretty similarly configured. I don't recall there one being in Murfreesboro. The one that I think about is like around Mont Eagle somewhere. But
well, we did the one at Fortress Boulevard does have a drive-through, okay. And I think several
it
of the
has
ones
significantly more space, however.
Yeah, that's what that was my question. Is have you designed one with a drive-through that's on this tight of a lot before?
Unfortunately, I've designed ones where it's tighter.
Is that right?
Yes. This one, the only thing that made this a little bit more of a challenge was the 42-foot setback and the encroachment on that side.
And to that extent, cars are not going to be any closer to Cason Square Boulevard than they currently are.
They're going to be less. Yeah, they're going to be less from Cason Square Boulevard.
Be farther away.
Yes. Or greater from Cason Square Boulevard than they are right now.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. This time, then, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against the application, would you please come forward? Mr. Dietz, did you want to say something? That's what you get. You get called on for looking ready. Come on up.
Tim Deep, Sonic Drive-Ins. Thanks a lot, guys. I think the biggest concern that I'm hearing is the reduction of space if their cars are queued back to the corner and they're trying to back out. That's at every Sonic Drive-In now. When we have cars on both sides, they continually, when you back out of a Sonic, you're looking anyway, because it happens all day long when we have the stalls up against the building and what we call split canopy, and we have it at every Sonic. And so there's cars down both sides, and they're backing up not into each other physically, but they're backing into those spaces all day long, every day at every store. And so it's not something that all of a sudden is going to be different, and they're going to be backing into these cars. When you go to Sonic, you know that you're backing up, that somebody else could be backing up right behind you or to the side. So, and believe it or not, we have very, very few instances, probably one a year, seriously, of all the stores. It's rare. So anyway, thought that might kind of shed a light on that little situation there.
And I don't want to. Hardee's kind of comes to mind for me. The one on Memorial where that tends to queue up around the building, and you've got parking there on the left side of the restaurant. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times those spaces are empty because nobody wants to get trapped in those spaces. And I think it can be almost a kind of a business killer to some extent if you let that get out of control. And you let parking back up beyond or into the parking spaces.
Right. And as Jimmy was trying to explain, the way we operate, all your other restaurants, you have to go to the window to get your food, or they pull you forward and they're running out. With us having the door to go backwards, the ones we have drive-throughs at, which in Murfreesboro is just Fortress, the one that was built last year that y'all were referencing, but we have 3 in Smyrna. And with us able to do that, I'm telling you, it's probably 30% of who we serve is out that door, the second car, third car, fourth car, and they're gone. So it's really a big line eliminator.
And you have a means for people to pay by card and cash, and
yes,
by coming out that in that.
Yes. So it's it's something that's unique as far as the queuing and line eliminator for us to get them out of there. So those a couple of little tidbits there. Is that good?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tim.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate it. All right. Yes, sir.
Chairman, staff had some concerns when this came through, and I'd like to share a few of those. If you look on your queuing spaces, I believe there's a handicap space that is the required handicap space that would be blocked from those queuing spaces right there. Really don't see another place for that, and that is required by the ADA to have that accessible space. And you can see how the queuing spaces would block it. It's not that we're against the concept. In fact, I believe that Zonings, just about all the newer restaurants coming through have drive-through, and we understand that's, a lot of their business. But unfortunately, this is an existing site, and it's extremely small. And there's too many complications with widths, and we put those requirements in the zoning ordinance for a good reason, because we've experienced problems with people backing out queuing lanes, not having enough bypass. So these are problems that we can create by allowing this, in my opinion, as well as blocking the handicap space as well. So it's why that we do not recommend the approval of this. It's an existing lot, it's small. The newer Zonings are much larger, have bigger, if you will, pass-by spaces, and a larger area for queuing. In fact, if you notice, a lot of the newer restaurants have even double queuing spaces that they're starting to do to allow more stacking on site. It's just a really tough site to try to do this.
Gary, can I ask you, or Mr. Whitaker, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
so
sir.
You speak of the handicap. You don't think there's a way, and maybe the engineer can speak to this too, you don't think there's a way to make the handicap spot on the I guess the northwestmost spot there, and of course you'd be eliminating some of the landscaping, but that way there would be an area where they could get out with a wheelchair on that side, or no?
I think they have the reason for that is that's the accessible sidewalk area for them to come, because they actually have a place where you can walk in and order.
Right.
Most of them do, and to get access. And typically, you don't isolate the handicap spaces. You try to put them up close as you can for convenience. Now, I'm not looking at the site plan currently, so it's kind of hard for me to visualize what you're saying.
It's the furthest away from where you would walk up and order, honestly, on this site plan as it sits today.
Which is really not conducive for somebody that has a disability trying to get to the walk-up order. And it's just, like I said, it's a tough site, and really it's a self-created hardship. It's nothing that, the topography of the land doesn't create this. In our opinion, it's a small site that you're trying to squeeze this in, and we have learned over the years, we have a few that are plagued with problems through drive-throughs, and we've tried to learn from that experience, and that's one of the things that we're very sensitive about, is assuring that they'll have good flow, that they can actually have the queuing spaces without blocking people, and it creates a long-term problem for us if it's not done correctly.
Gary, is the spaces that are there on the north side of it presently, would they, although they extend into the setback, is there any, is it a non-conforming use as it stands now?
I don't believe so. The specific section I believe we're talking to, and Donald can help me with this, the zoning ordinance deals with queuing spaces. And the premise of that is you really don't want a building built with your queuing spaces being visual from the public right-of-way. I mean, it has to do with aesthetics, that part of it does. So by trying to push those out of the public right-of-way, we like to get those to the side, the back, or around the back of the building. So it helps aesthetically as well. So that's kind of multifaceted reason for doing that.
But parking spaces, I guess, if there's 60-degree parking spaces, they're allowed in the setback.
Yes, the parking spaces are. And that's another thing, the degree of the parking space is what requires a wider angle when you back out, or actually a wider space between that, and they're having to ask for a variance for that. There was just a lot of variances they're having to ask for to get this drive-through. And I believe staff conveyed that to the applicant when he made this request as well.
One variance, yes, not the others.
Okay. If there's anything, we got to get you on record, so if you want to add anything, you got to come to the podium.
Yeah, the one variance request for the setback, yes, but even the accessible space issue, they understood where we were going to be in that, and no one said this was going to be a problem. This is the first I've heard that they feel like there's other issues with it. And I've spoken to Mr. Anthony several times. I knew that we needed to have the additional 2 variances, and I understood the reasoning and the rationale behind that. But I came and met with people from the planning staff and discussed the project, and we found out we had the issue with the setback, but they didn't mention anything about requiring a variance for the other accessible space. We could potentially move the accessible space to the front. There are places, I mean, we do have that a lot of times at that front space. We just have to move the ramp. There's not a place indoors that someone goes to order. They would just be going to the patio. And so there's just a ramp that's put there, and you stripe it off. We would have to relocate some of the landscaping, some things like that. But that doesn't seem to be a problem to me. We've done that before.
All right.
We can keep going.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
At this time, then, we're going to conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you would, please come forward. All right. Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussions or motion.
I guess I was thinking of Mr. Whitaker's comments. The main issue is the width of the aisle, getting around, as well as blocking the handicap spot. Does the handicap spot alleviate much of the concerns, or is it just that pinch point there where somebody's trying to back out? And I guess that's what Mr. Mann was offering help any?
Well, they may be able to relocate the handicap space, but whoever parks there is still going to be blocked in as they queue around. And again, we're not against them promoting their business or increasing. It's just when you look at it, there's 3 variances. If they came through to build this site today, new, we wouldn't be here because we wouldn't recommend either for this. If it came in new today on the same size lot, we would tell them that we wouldn't consider the drive-through because it's just too tight. They don't meet the requirements. They're adding an element here. It's existing the way it is, but they're coming in and adding a whole new element that has possible ramifications of congestion and backing out of the spaces. They're modifying it, and to me, there's no reason if you're going to modify it that it doesn't comply with the current ordinances as on the books. This is an addition to. Like I said, if they came through today and asked, we wouldn't consider it. For all those reasons, we run into problems with not having an adequate bypass lane. And if one person doesn't hug that queuing space lane, then it blocks everybody from getting around and getting out. And those are the reasons we have wider requirements and what have you today. Now, what they do in other cities, I can't attest to, but we have learned some hard lessons, and that's why we try to stick to our guns on allowing the queuing spaces, the width, and what have you.
So you have some instances where you have drive-throughs and people are calling you guys that, hey, this site isn't functioning correctly? Is that?
Well, what happens is they end up backing out in the main thoroughfare, and that's
when you get involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there's probably a couple places can come into mind on Old Fort where we experience that on a daily basis right now, and it's bringing awareness to us. And we take a hard look at queuing spaces since that has happened. And I'm glad they have a great business, but it sure causes a lot of problems on access. I'm just glad it's not on Old Fort Park and it's on the access road. So, and you may know or may not know what I'm talking about, but basically we've run into all kinds of problems with queuing spaces and people going in. And I hope their business is great. It appears it's working really well for them in their newer sites, but one of the site on Lascassas Highway works great, but it's got, and we pulled that up and we looked at the other sites and they're quite large compared to this one.
You said Lascassas Highway has a drive-through?
Does. It has a drive-through, and but it has a lot larger area for bypass lanes and for people to back out of as well.
Mr. Young, to further elaborate, if they can put the site plan back up, I did want to, the number of spaces I've counted that could be affected if queuing stopped, if it went all the way back and stopped at this point as shown, it would be 1, 2, 3, potentially 4 on this side and then 2 on this side. That's as long as the queuing wasn't longer back, which could affect more spaces, but if the queuing was shorter, it would affect fewer spaces, obviously.
Well, I guess I'll start. I kind of swung from one side to the other, and I understand the issues, and they were trying to work their way through it. And my thought was, well, Sonic has a vested interest in making this flow. They don't want their customers stuck. So as long as they've made plans with the drive-through to work through it, then they'd be okay. But then as the city has seen some of these issues come up at other locations, and there's a reason they wrote these. I guess I can see them kind of swing the other side. Part 1, which I don't know if this helps their application, I'm okay with the 2 side yard issue, and that wouldn't bother me. But I guess I would have a tough time given what we've seen at others in dealing with the queuing space.
Well, I can see some bad attitudes if you can't get out. And the way people are nowadays, they get out with road rage. I don't know what would happen if you couldn't get out. I mean, when I go somewhere, I want to be able to pull out and go on about my business. That's the thing that kind of bothers me about it.
It'll be a food fight.
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to play devil's advocate. I think Mr. Dietz has made some good points about the fact the whole backing thing in a Sonic. I don't, as my kids grew older, I don't frequent there as much as I used to. But I would have to agree that specifically at a Sonic, you are definitely, unless you're nuts, you're paying a lot more better attention when you back out. So I'm kind of okay with the fact that the lane is a smaller width, because I still think you're going to pay great attention as you're backing out of those parking places on the south side. It sounds like you've got a program in place to try to manage the queuing piece that maybe some other restaurants in town don't have. So that's, particular or peculiar, whatever word you want to use, with respects to your restaurant and then respects to this site. This is a tough one, though, because I also just can't imagine blocking parking spaces if that queue line did back up into these stall areas. I don't know.
It just doesn't look like it would take that many more cars beyond what's intended here to block all of the parking, or at least all the parking on that north side of the drive-through. It wouldn't take a lot during a heavy traffic area to cause those spaces to become problematic. And I grew up in Smyrna, so I know the Smyrna Sonic very well, and I remember when they put that drive-through in, and it seems to work okay, but it does get backed up, and it does cover up those spaces in a similar way as I could foresee that happening here, and that is disconcerting to me, particularly when you don't have a good space for those cars to go if you get backed up all the way to the road. But I agree with Mr. Young that as far as the setback's concerned, I'm not nearly as concerned about that.
All right.
I think it's easy to just take a stab at the first one and work our way through them.
Ready for a motion? Yeah.
I guess part one, I'll make a motion to approve the variance for the drive-through lanes being in required front yard, as it's actually lessening the impact in that section, subject to any staff comments.
I'll second that motion.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that part of it passes. We'll consider next the requirement, a variance from the requirement that the carryout restaurant have a minimum of 10 queuing spaces.
Can I ask a question before we? So, if two things. Number one, if we approve this, just for argument's sake, can the variance be subject to this owner? Meaning, if we can make an argument that he's got a manageable process in place, can we stipulate that this variance would only be for this owner in this operation, or no? Like we do with like if someone's going to have a mother-in-law suite at a house type deal.
I believe that variance could be restricted to whether it's this owner or not, this business being continued in this format, the usage substantially as it's shown on the current site plan.
Right.
Obviously, if you scrape this building and replace it with a different layout,
right,
almost certainly that'd go away anyhow. So
right,
it would have to continue the substantially the same business approach, I guess I would say, regardless of who the owner might be or what the brand even might be. If they kept the same drive-in and drive-through system in the same building, it should work the same.
All right. My second question is, again, if it was approved and the city deemed, and I may be asking a question, this is far-fetched, but the city deemed that it's definitely not working, it's going to be, say, back to Ms. King's statement that it's backing into the road, that we somehow revoke the variance, that there's no way to have that as a stipulation as part of an approval. And I'm grabbing at straws.
If they'd done construction and stuff at that point, hadn't they?
Correct. Correct.
being-
But it would be they would understand the ramifications.
It'd be a risk that they would have to
Correct.
take.
Correct.
Is there,
I don't think we've done that.
Like I said, I'm reaching.
is there a required, what's the parking situation for a business of this nature? Is there a required parking?
That's a very good question. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be happy to look at it.
The reason I ask, I know that you need to have parking for staff, and I don't know what the requirements are, or what the architect's probably going to be able to give me some highlights on this, but how would it be possible, or would there be any way that you could expand that drive-through lane to go into that parking a little bit and move those parking spaces? Is there another way to configure this that would give you a little bit more reach so that you could have a few more cars there without upsetting those covered surface stations?
Not without a lot more modification. I mean, we were trying to minimally modify what we were doing.
But as far as the needs for parking in the back there, would you be able to do that? I mean, I understand that may be at an additional expense for modifications, and I understand that, when it comes to businesses, you try to get things done as efficiently as possible. I would want to do the same thing, but
Yes.
Is there a means to do that within this requirements?
Let me give you the parking breakdown just quickly on how it's calculated. So for a carry-out restaurant, which I think is what this would be, drive-in restaurant, one for each 100 square feet of floor area, or one for every 2 seats provided on the premises, whichever is greater. So I think the floor area requirement, I do not know the floor area of this particular restaurant.
We had calculated it as 16 plus 1 handicap was required, and I think we're providing, I think we're providing 28 right now, plus 2 handicap.
So you're parking, you're counting the stalls to order product as well as along the rear of the property?
Yes.
Okay. If I guess they're showing 9 spots there where the handicap spot is, if just hypothetically, if those weren't there and the driveway aisle could get closer to the building there, that would probably add some queuing spaces, and not what you want, but as far as eliminating the hardship, that would give you more queuing spaces and not block spaces. I guess you could scoot it closer to the building and get more width in the section where you're passing.
Right. I mean, I guess additionally, we could take the accessible space that's there and move it where we're putting the other space, where it's on the other side of the striping at the back. I don't know if you could bring up the plan again where they could, or I don't know. Are y'all looking at the plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, never mind.
What I wasn't sure of is this: you have this additional space where there's an accessible space, and then it looks like 8 more spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that aren't covered parking.
At the back?
At the back.
Yes,
on the east side.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know if there was a way to remove a few of those, move your drive-through lane towards the east.
We'd have to move, right now, there's the trash enclosure, and we'd have to relocate the trash enclosure, and so we were trying to, that's just a lot more stuff to kind of do.
Here's the difficulty we face. You can tell this is the most we've struggled with an application in a long time. I can tell you.
I had no idea this was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, understand that we're in a position where we want to help, and it's not a big deal to add a drive-through window, but we are bound by the ordinances and regulations. And in fact, we're standing here in light of the city planning director telling us this is a bad idea. So it shouldn't really be a surprise that this is we're struggling with this. What I might like to see is, if you haven't looked at other possibilities thoroughly, although I understand it may create some difficulty for you, but right now I feel like we're trying to jam a round peg through a square hole. If there are other possibilities that exist out there that can make this easier, more palatable for certainly for the city and for us, we'd be glad to defer it and have you all look at it a little bit harder to see if there's something else you can work out. If you want us to carry on today, we will, but if you think there's some possibility that we can sharpen a pencil and go at it again, then we'd be glad to do that too.
I'm going to defer that question to Mr. Dietz.
I don't know how much I can help. I appreciate and know the concerns. Appreciate y'all struggling, trying to dig up new ways to make it happen for us, and so thanks a lot. A couple of things first. The handicap. We have no problem moving it down the other end. I don't even know why it's at that end anyway. The store was built in '99. That's how it was approved. And so it's way down on that other end. So right off the bat, immediately, it's like, it doesn't need to be down there anyway. It needs to be up near that patio. And so we have no problem doing that. So that would eliminate that problem. We would even take that handicap stall away, out of the picture. No order from there. Drive-through is so important in today's business that we would eliminate a stall or two on that side to get another 2 cars, to make it 10, 12, whatever, queuing on that. As far as it backing into the road, it's not going to happen. I know who we're talking about, Chick-fil-A. They have one location, and it's a great business, and they're out on the road. You know, we have 7 locations in town, so our business is just spread out, and we would never, even our best store, which is, we have 2 stores that are ranked in the top 20 in the whole chain in this town, and one of them has a drive-through, one on Fortress, does not ever even queue up like what we have on the plans here. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of the way that we can maintain it or service it through the door and all. And so we'll do, what I'm saying is, we want to do whatever we can to make this happen. And I think moving that handicap is the first thing we ought to do anyway. But then we would eliminate a stall or 2. That would then it would eliminate, that would then all of a sudden reduce the backing out down a stall or 2, I believe, because we counted 3 or 4, I think, that might have a problem. So anyway, but as far as like trying to sharpen a pencil and reconfigure, I really don't know if there's a whole lot more we can do as far as.
Well, and that may be fair, eliminating 2 of the stalls. And that's kind of the reconfiguration. There was something simple like that may solve the problem. Right. If we can do that and that satisfies the city, and man, it's going to be a whole lot easier for us. Yeah. Tim, is it mission critical that you have an answer today?
No.
Or can we do it in 30 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And maybe bring back a plan that
Sure.
eliminates the
Sure.
2 parking stalls and extends that queue out 2 more spaces. I don't
Exactly.
know, Gary, do you see issues with that? Or trying, because he's already gotten the variance for the drive-through itself in the setback. I think now we're just talking about the queuing up issues and the lane itself.
Yeah, that little back corner.
And the space between
Right. That little back
drive-through
corner. Yeah.
Chairman, as always, we'll be happy to entertain another concept and review it on its merits.
Okay. Fair enough. Appreciate it.
All right. Okay. If you're okay, then I don't. And this is maybe speaking on a turn. This is kind
No,
of
I'm with your line of thinking.
with you.
I'm with your line of thinking.
So we would need to make a motion to defer.
defer. If you're okay with that,
Yes.
just for 30 days.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Have a motion and a second.
Thank y'all for your time, really.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, fellas.
And then are we going to defer?
Do we
Yeah.
need to do that as well with our second? Then I also move to defer the third piece of this application with regard to the 18-foot minimum width.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. See y'all next month then. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, dog. You did a great job on that, Chairman. You really did.
All right. Next, we'll consider variance and a special use permit request. This is for application Z16019 by Mr. Mike Hunley, representing Rutherford County Government, making a request for property in a medical or residential district at 604 East Burton Street and 611 East Lytle Street. First, a special use permit to allow a public building in the commercial medical residential district. And secondly, a 5 parking space variance from the ordinance requiring 1 parking space for every 250 square feet of floor area. All right, Mr. Anthony, if you review that for us, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do want to point out that the applicant is Mike Nunley with an N, and that's my mistake for calling him Mike Hunley. Mr. Nunley, representing Rutherford County Government, wishes to construct a new 4,037 square foot structure on a slightly more than 1 acre lot located at 604 East Burton Street. And the subject property has frontage along East Burton, North University, and East Lytle Streets. 2 structures used by Rutherford County EMS are already located on the subject property. An administrative building is situated on the south side of the lot along East Lytle, while a facility that houses the emergency vehicles is situated on the northeast side of the lot along East Burton. The new structure would be built on the northwest portion of the lot near the intersection of East Burton and North University Streets. In order to construct this new structure, the applicant must first obtain a special use permit for a public building from this board. Additionally, the applicant wishes to obtain a variance from the city's parking requirements for government office buildings. The zoning ordinance requires 1 parking space for every 250 square feet of floor area. The site plan provided by the applicant shows a total floor area of 7,879 square feet for all 3 buildings on the site. Using that 1 space to 250 square feet ratio found in Chart 4, the applicant would be required to provide 32 spaces. Presently, the applicant leases 15 spaces from NHC at 606 East Burton Street. And when you account for those lease spaces, the applicant would then be responsible for providing 17 spaces on site. The site plan shows 12 typical spaces and 1 accessible space on site, leaving the applicant 5 short of meeting the city's minimum parking requirement, as that 1 accessible space does not count toward minimum parking. According to the applicant, the existing structure that currently houses ambulances cannot accommodate newer or larger vehicles. Because of the expanding fleet and larger vehicle size, the applicant wishes to construct a new building to house these vehicles. Ingress would be from North University Street, and egress would be provided onto East Burton. And I'm going to pull the site plan up so we can see exactly how that's going to function. Okay, so on the board I have pulled up the site plan, and as you can see, marked with the arrows here, vehicles would enter from North University. This would be the parking, the bay doors, where the ambulances would be parked within this building, and then they would exit out onto East Burton Street. So there would be no backing out onto any public street. By creating the separate ingress and egress points, emergency vehicles will not have to back onto any right-of-way. The applicant did submit the site layout, landscape plan, photometric plot, and building elevations for review, and these documents will also be reviewed by staff during the full site plan review process. As shown on the elevations that were submitted, the exterior of the proposed building will be covered primarily in brick with some ephes accents. With regard to the special use permit, the applicant attests that all standards of general applicability will be satisfied. Further, the additional standards for institutional group assembly uses will be satisfied. Specifically, the applicant has indicated that no vehicles will back onto public right-of-way. Proposed illumination levels will not exceed 1/2 foot candle at any property line, and solid waste will be stored in the ambulance bays, thus not creating any unsightly conditions outdoors. With regard to the parking variance, the applicant points out that the subject property has spatial constraints. On a typical day, no more than 15 people are at the subject property. And so although the structures are classified as public buildings, they are not actually visited by the public like some of our other public buildings, such as a fire station or something like that. The applicant contends that these circumstances create both practical difficulties and unusual characteristics. Staff is happy to answer any questions. We can look at photographs, and the applicant is here to discuss the project as well.
How many parking spaces are on the lot currently that are actually on the lot?
Currently, I would probably need to defer to the applicant on the current parking situation.
I'm Anthony Mangrum with Klein Sweeney Associates, the architects affiliated with the project. I believe currently there's 12 spaces on the site.
Okay.
So there's the same number of spaces that are planned.
Correct.
You can see in the aerial photograph that I've pulled up the current parking situation. Parking is a little scattered. I know that there are some spaces when I visited the site, spaces that back out directly onto East Burton. And then additionally, people can pull in from East Burton, and there are some parking spaces and cars that sort of park wherever space is available as well.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Anything you'd like to add? I'm sorry, Mangrum, essentially?
Anthony Mangrum.
Mr. Mangrum.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to the application, sir?
Nothing. Well, the only thing I'd like to point out is I think the egress and exiting, or the egress for the ambulances, I think it's kind of reversed of what you described it.
Sorry about that.
Not that that matters, I think, but it's you would
I'm still
enter from
thinking
East
of
Burton,
Sonic.
perhaps,
I'm sorry.
and exit to North University. And they can also back into the garage from North University as well. That's where there's that little hammerhead in the driveway.
Your master plan shows the entrance coming from University.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I have it up if we can get it pulled up on the screen. So the arrows are pointing in from North University.
Well, they can back in from North University, but you're right. I think that is incorrect. They would not be exiting on East Burton.
Okay.
It's our mistake.
So this is a drive-through building, though?
Correct. There are doors on both sides.
So whichever way they come in from, they can go out the other direction?
They can.
Okay.
Well, there will be, I think, 4 ambulances in that bay, so there will be some hindrances.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. This time we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you would please come forward. Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion. Again, two-part motion, or two-part application.
If no further questions, I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now consider the 5 parking space variance request.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 5 parking space variance.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Mangum, that application has been approved. Appreciate the county giving us the opportunity to consider that one. All right, now we'll consider some special use permit requests, some familiar names on our list here. First one is application Z16020 by Ms. Chrissy Clevenger, requesting a special use permit to operate a temporary outdoor vending establishment, Shaved Ice, on property located in a commercial highway district at 1911 Old Fort Parkway. Mr. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Clevenger's sales kiosk would be located in the parking area behind an existing Chick-fil-A restaurant and near the existing Toys R Us and Mattress Firm stores. The applicant would like to be approved for operation beginning on April 30th of this year and ending on August 31st of this year. Although the temporary vending regulations only allow sites to be approved for 70 days, this is a location that has previously been grandfathered in for a 6-month approval. However, the applicant is only seeking approval for 4 months. The applicant has been approved at this location from 2006 through 2015. Staff is not aware of any complaints regarding the site's operation during the previous years. Proposed hours of operation are Monday through Thursday from noon until 6 p.m., Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Sunday from 1 p.m. until 6 p.m. The business will be conducted out of a 6-foot by 12-foot trailer, which will be removed from the premises at the end of each business day. The trailer itself will take up 3 parking spaces, which does not exceed the maximum amount of parking allowed on site for a temporary vendor. The applicant's trailer will comply with all setback requirements for the CH zoning district. The Toys R Us restroom will be available for applicant's customers during hours of operation, and we do have a letter from Toys R Us to that extent. The applicant intends to use a generator for power. There are several fire hydrants within close proximity, no tables and chairs on site, and the site's going to be designed just as it has been in previous years. If the board approves the application, we do recommend the following conditions. First, the applicant shall apply for an electrical safety inspection prior to beginning operation. An electrical permit shall be purchased from the Building and Codes Department in order to obtain this inspection. Second, time period of operation will be from April 30th, 2016 until August 31st, 2016. Staff can answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Questions from Mr. Anthony? All right. Ms. Clevenger, anything you'd like to add to your application? All right. Then at this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against the application, if you would please come forward. Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion.
There's no discussion. I move to approve the application, including staff comments.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Need further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, your application has been approved. Next, we'll consider application Z16021 by Mr. Aaron Blankenship for Old South Patriotic, requesting permission or special use permit to operate a fireworks retailer on property in the commercial highway district located at 3060 South Church Street. Mr. Anthony.
Thank you. The applicant wishes to operate temporary outdoor vending establishment, seasonal fireworks sales in the IGA grocery store parking lot located southwest of the intersection of South Church Street and Veterans Parkway. This property was approved for the first time in 2015 for fireworks sales. The applicant is seeking approval for the 4th of July selling season. Hours of operation will be from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. Between June 28th and July 5th. With the exception of July 3rd and 4th, during which time the tent will be open from 8 a.m. until midnight. The proposed tent is 30 feet by 60 feet. Will comply with all of the setback requirements in the zoning ordinance. The applicant will have a generator and will properly dispose of solid waste as needed. The applicant is going to have a vehicle on site overnight for security purposes, and there will be a portable restroom on site. The proposed tent would be located at the southeast corner of the parking lot. There appears to be adequate space for parking for the existing uses and the proposed fireworks tent at this location. The tent exceeds the minimum separation requirements from alcohol sales for on-site consumption, and the tent is approximately 485 feet from an existing fire hydrant, meeting minimum requirements. If the board wishes to approve this request, staff recommends the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall submit certification that the tent is flame resistant or treated to be flame resistant, and I believe we've already actually received that for this site. 2, a fire extinguisher shall be kept on site at all times. 3, the city's fireworks ordinance shall be posted on site. 4, fireworks shall not be set off on site. 5, the applicant shall apply for and pass an electrical safety inspection prior to opening for business. An electrical permit shall be purchased from the Building and Codes Department in order to obtain this inspection. 6, the tent shall meet all minimum building setback requirements for the CH zoning district, and a tent permit shall be obtained for the tent. 7, one type 3 barricade shall be installed to the west of the tent, and one shall be installed to the north of the tent adjacent to the main entrance drive for the shopping center. These barricades shall remain in place for the duration of the season. And 8, the area around the tent shall be cordoned off as shown on the site plan. Staff can answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is here as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Any questions? All right. To Mr. Blankenship, anything you'd like to add? All right. Then at this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you would please come forward. Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Open the floor for further discussion or motion.
If no further questions, I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit request with the 8 conditions required by the staff.
I'll second.
All right. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Blankenship, that application has been approved. And we'll next consider our final application is Z16022 by Mr. Alan Gauger for Extreme Fireworks. He, too, is requesting a special use permit to operate a fireworks retailer in a heavy industrial district located at 1945 Northwest Broad Street. Mr. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This temporary outdoor vending establishment for seasonal fireworks would be located in an existing parking lot located at the southwest corner of Northwest Broad Street and North Thompson Lane. The subject property, which currently houses a tobacco store and check cashing business, was first approved for seasonal fireworks sales in 2013. The tent's hours of operation would be from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. from June 28th through July 2nd, 8 a.m. until 12 midnight on July 3rd and 4th, and 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. on July 5th. This tent is 30 feet by 45 feet and will abide by the setback requirements for the HI zoning district. If the board wishes to approve the requests, staff recommends the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall submit certification that the tent is flame resistant or treated to be flame resistant. 2, a fire extinguisher shall be kept on site at all times. 3, the city's fireworks ordinance shall be posted on site. 4, fireworks shall not be set off on site. 5, the applicant shall apply for and pass an electrical safety inspection prior to opening for business. An electrical permit shall be purchased from the Building and Codes Department in order to obtain this inspection. 6, the tent shall meet all minimum building setback requirements for the HI zoning district, and a tent permit shall be obtained for the tent. 7, vehicular access to North Thompson Lane shall not be allowed. 8, one type 3 barricade, as well as an adequate number of 3-foot tall traffic cones, shall be in place for the duration of the selling season along Northwest Broad Street frontage of the subject property near the intersection with North Thompson Lane. And 9, prior to erecting the tent, the applicant shall have the water line that is located on the subject property field located, and no tent stakes shall be allowed within 10 feet of the marked water line. Staff can answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is here as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Any questions for Mr. Anthony? All right, Mr. Gauger, anything you'd like to add to the application? All right, then at this time we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the application subject to the staff comments.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Gauger, that application has been approved. Thank you. All right, that concludes our business. Are there any other staff reports or other business?
I have nothing.
We'd be remiss if we didn't recognize our outgoing chairman. Enjoyed serving with you.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Is this it?
This is it.
This is it.
Wow.
How about that?
We thought we still had you for a few more months. I didn't realize
City
that
staff
was
is in shock. I'm glad I said something.
That is. Well,
Always the last to know.
I would say on behalf of the planning department, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor to work with you with this board, and wish you the very best.
Well, thank you very much. I was going to extend it a couple more months, but for the Sonic application, I didn't want to be here. No, I'm just kidding.
Leave that for us.
I'm going to leave that for you. Well, thank you. It has been a pleasure to serve. I've been on the board since, I think 2000 or 1999 or 2000. I can't remember how long it's been. So I've served with a lot of 3 mayors, I suppose, 3 mayors, a lot of city councilmen, a lot of city staff, and of course a lot of board members. But always had a, I wouldn't say a good time, but it's been a but it's
Educational?
Certainly been educational, and it's been interesting all the time. But working with people that are always take the job seriously, do it well, treat all the applicants with respect. It's been a good ride, but I got to head into the farm, so we won't be in Murfreesboro anymore.
John, I would just say that I think what you could sum it up, you could say it's real, it's been fun, but it hasn't always been real fun. But I thank you for your work and your service to the city. I've enjoyed working with you and getting to know you during this time, and appreciate what you've done and the time you spent that you've given to all of us. And I wish you well, and as you move on to the county BZA.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure. All right. Anything else? We're adjourned.